After a long day at the office, Angela just wanted to get home. But that night, as she walked through the city streets, a stranger grabbed her arm and whispered something unexpected. "Keep walking and pretend you are my wife." What starts as a bewildering moment soon sweeps her into a sequence of events she could never have foreseen. Amid hidden truths, unlikely encounters, and a connection that defies logic, Angela will see her meticulously constructed routine turned upside down. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Loves Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The clock in the corner of Angela's computer screen read 9:47 p.m. She rubbed her tired eyes, adjusting the thin-framed glasses on her nose. The accounting office was silent, the other desks empty for hours. With no family commitments, it was always Angela who stayed behind to resolve last-minute issues. Another report completed, she murmured to herself, organizing the pile of papers in the worn brown folder. The tips of her fingers were rough from handling documents, and an annoying pain had settled at the base of her spine after hours of sitting in the same position. As she closed the office, Angela looked up at the night sky. The stars were hidden by the city's light pollution, but the full moon shone majestically. The air was pleasantly warm for a Friday night. At the taxi stand, after waiting for more than half an hour in vain, she made an impulsive decision. A walk won't do me any harm, she thought, adjusting the strap of the bag on her shoulder and holding the document folder firmly against her chest. At 32, Angela considered herself in good shape, despite her sedentary routine. A 45-minute walk would even be welcome after a whole day sitting down. The downtown streets were lively. Restaurants with tables on the sidewalks housed couples holding hands. Laughter echoed from the open doors of bars, and groups of friends walked together, sharing stories and plans for the weekend. Angela observed these scenes with a mix of curiosity and melancholy. The last time she had gone out with friends was almost 2 months ago when her college friend Melissa was in town for work. All the other friends seemed to be in a different phase of life, married, with kids, or living in other cities. And no one ever talks about the difficulty of making new friends in adulthood. Not that marriage is essential for happiness, she always told herself, but there were moments like that night when loneliness felt heavier than usual. The bills to pay and the promotion she aimed for had become the center of her existence. Distracted by these thoughts, Angela didn't notice when the door of a bar suddenly swung open. A man rushed out, colliding directly with her. The impact caught her off guard, causing her folder to slip from her hands. Like a slow-motion movie scene, dozens of reports scattered across the sidewalk, some dancing with the gentle night breeze. "Damn," Angela exclaimed, immediately crouching down to gather the papers before they got dirty or blew away. "I'm sorry. I really didn't see you," said the man, bending down to help as well. "Let me collect these papers." When Angela looked up, she met a pair of hazel eyes watching her with genuine concern. The man seemed to be around 35 years old, with slightly tasseled dark hair and striking features, coupled with a bit of stubble that gave him a casual air. "You didn't have to run off as if you were escaping something," Angela retorted, the day's stress evident in her voice. "Just look at this. They're all out of order now. I really am sorry," he replied, picking up a few more papers. "I was well distracted. These seem important. They are accounting reports that I need to review for Monday," she explained, softening her tone upon realizing his sincere effort. "Now, I'll have to reorganize everything. Working late on a Friday and still taking work home?" he asked with a tone that mixed admiration and pity. Angela let out a tired sigh. "Someone needs to do the work. And since I'm the only one without kids to pick up from school or a romantic dinner to attend, I completely understand." He nodded, handing her the last stack of papers. That's when his expression drastically changed. His eyes widened as he spotted something or someone emerging from the bar. An elegant couple was looking around as if searching for someone. The man became visibly tense. In a swift move, he approached Angela, intertwining his arm with hers. "Come with me. Keep walking and pretend you're my wife," he whispered, urgency in his voice. Before Angela could protest, the woman from the couple waved and approached them. "Arthur, there you are. We thought you had left us," she said with an artificially wide smile. Arthur, now Angela knew his name, assumed a confident posture, gently squeezing her arm as if making a silent request. "No, it's just that my wife called me saying she was arriving, and I came out here to meet her. Teddy and Lauren, this is my wife. There was a momentary pause, and Angela felt the weight of the three's expectant gaze on her. For a second, she considered unraveling that facade, but something inside her, perhaps the monotony of her routine, perhaps the desire for an adventure, made her play along. "Angela. My name is Angela," she said with a convincing smile. "Nice to meet you, Teddy and Lauren." The slight relief on Arthur's face was almost imperceptible, but Angela noticed it, feeling a strange complicity forming between them. "You need to join us for another drink," insisted Lauren, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dress that certainly cost more than Angela's monthly salary. "We didn't want to intrude," Arthur began. But Teddy, a tall man with broad shoulders, was already leading them back inside the bar. "We insist. We can hardly believe Arthur finally got married. We need to meet the woman who managed to tame our eternal bachelor." The bar was cozy with dim lighting and dark wooden tables. Soon they were seated in a booth with drinks in front of them. Angela opted for a glass of red wine while Arthur ordered a whiskey. "So, how did you two meet?" Lauren asked, leaning forward, her eyes shining with curiosity. Angela and Arthur exchanged a quick glance, and she decided to take the lead. "It was, in a bookstore," she improvised, recalling her favorite place. "We were looking for the same book, and there was only one copy." "A novel?" Lauren asked, smiling. "In fact, it was a book about personal finance," Angela replied, staying close to her reality. "We ended up deciding to share it." Arthur entered the game with surprising naturalness. "It was the best decision of my life. We ended up meeting in a cafe to discuss the chapters and, well, here we are." "How long has it been?" Teddy asked, seeming genuinely interested. 2 years of dating, 6 months of marriage," Arthur replied promptly. 8 months? Angela corrected at the same time. There was a moment of awkward silence. 8 months, Arthur repeated, smiling nervously. "Time flies so fast when you're happy that I lose track." "A toast to the newlyweds, then," proposed Teddy, raising his glass. As the night progressed, Angela and Arthur built a fictional story of their relationship together. Each question was a new challenge, and the answers didn't always align perfectly. At one point, Arthur mentioned that they had a cat named Winston, while Angela minutes later talked about her allergy to animal fur. "That's why Winston lives at my sister's apartment," Arthur quickly added, prompting disguised laughter between them. There was something extraordinarily liberating about creating that fiction. Angela, usually reserved and methodical, found herself immersed in the role of a passionate wife, inventing details about a honeymoon on the coast that never happened, and plans for the future she had never considered. By around midnight, after many shared stories and a few rounds of drinks, Lauren and Teddy finally said their goodbyes, not without insisting on scheduling a dinner soon. When they were finally alone on the sidewalk in front of the bar, Arthur let out a long sigh of relief. "I really don't know how to thank you," he said, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of nervousness. "Linen is a friend of an ex-girlfriend of mine from a long time ago. A complicated relationship that ended well, not very well. When I saw her in the bar with Teddy, I knew she would rush to tell my ex that she had met me. And you didn't want to seem like the sad, abandoned bachelor?" Angela added with an understanding smile. "Something like that." He laughed a bit embarrassed. "When I realized they were coming my way, I panicked. That's when I bumped into you." "Well, I guess we're even now for the mess with my papers," she joked. "More than even. You were amazing in there creating that whole story." "It was fun," Angela admitted, realizing that it was the first time in months she felt truly excited. "A welcome break from my routine. Look, I know this was weird and totally unconventional," but Arthur hesitated as if thinking over his next words. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Angela. Truly. Likewise, Arthur." There was a moment of silence filled with the distant music leaking from the bar and the hum of the still busy street. "Well, I guess it's time to return to reality," Angela finally said, adjusting the folder under her arm. "I have reports to reorganize, remember?" "Of course." He nodded, looking a little disappointed. "Can I at least call a taxi for you?" "There's no need. I live relatively close by." They said goodbye with a slightly prolonged handshake and an awkward smile. Angela watched Arthur walk away before heading her own way, with an odd feeling that something significant had just happened in her life. The following Monday, the accounting office was as bustling as ever. Angela had spent the weekend reorganizing reports and getting ahead on work, but her mind occasionally wandered to the unusual evening she had experienced. Around 11 a.m., Patricia, the receptionist, appeared at her desk carrying an arrangement of flowers, an elegant bouquet of yellow and white tulips. "Delivery for you," he announced with a curious smile. A secret admirer. Angela, surprised, accepted the bouquet while nearby colleagues watched with interest. It wasn't common to receive flowers at the office, especially for someone who, as she herself admitted, led such a discreet social life. With slightly trembling fingers, she opened the small attached card. "For my wife, an invitation to dinner, this time without an audience. Friday 8 p.m. at Café Lumière. If you accept, confirm at the number below with affection, your husband, Arthur." Angela felt her face flush with warmth. How did he know where she worked? Then she remembered that during the conversation with Lauren and Teddy, she had mentioned the name of the accounting firm. "And so, aren't you going to tell us who it is?" asked Denise, a colleague who had approached curious. "A friend," Angela replied vaguely, putting the card back in the drawer, but unable to hide her smile. The rest of the week passed in a blur of anticipation. Angela, who had always been meticulous in her decisions, found herself buying a new dress and reconsidering her haircut, small changes that reflected something awakening within her. On Friday at 8:05 p.m., she decided not to arrive exactly on time to avoid seeming too eager. Angela entered Café Lumière. The place was cozy with exposed brick walls and small hanging lamps that created a warm atmosphere. Arthur was already there at a table in the back and stood up when he saw her. He was wearing a dark blue shirt that highlighted his eyes, and he seemed equally nervous and excited. "You came," he said, as if he had really doubted she would show up. "It would be rude to refuse an invitation from my husband," she joked, feeling the initial tension dissipate. The dinner proceeded with surprising ease. Without the pressure of maintaining a facade, they discovered that they had much in common, from a taste for old movies to a shared passion for mystery books. Arthur was an architect working at a firm specializing in historical restorations and had the same problem as Angela. He was often caught up in projects after business hours. "So, what did you think of that night?" he asked at one point as they shared a chocolate dessert. "It was the most spontaneous thing I've done in years," Angela confessed. "I almost couldn't believe myself afterward. I was impressed by your improvisation skills. I almost believed we were really married. Well, technically, with all those stories we made up, it would be an interesting marriage." Arthur laughed, then got serious for a moment. "You know, after that night, I realized something. My life was predictable, safe, stable, but without surprises. You reminded me how good it is to step off the script sometimes." "I completely understand," Angela agreed. "It's like we're so focused on building a stable life that we forget to live." That first meeting turned into a second, then a third. Soon, Angela found herself rediscovering parts of herself she had forgotten: her spontaneous laughter, her taste for impromptu adventures, her ability to open up to someone. Arthur brought to her life exactly what she didn't know she needed: spontaneity. He invited her on last-minute outings to try out unfamiliar restaurants, and even to a Latin dance class where they both discovered they had two left feet. 3 months after that unexpected meeting on a Sunday afternoon, they were walking through a city park when they spotted Lauren and Teddy coming their way. "Our accomplices," Arthur murmured, squeezing Angela's hand. "Arthur and Angela," exclaimed Lauren, genuinely surprised. What a wonderful coincidence. There were hugs and greetings, and soon they were seated in a nearby cafe, chatting like old friends. "You seem even more in love than the last time," remarked Teddy, noticing the way Arthur looked at Angela. Angela and Arthur exchanged a knowing glance. "Actually, we are indeed more in love with each passing day," commented Angela. As the sun bid farewell on the horizon, painting the sky golden, Angela smiled upon realizing how unpredictable life's paths can be. A simple bump, an impulsive gesture, and an innocent lie had shown her something it took years to understand. Life does not wait for perfect timing or meticulous plans. Sometimes it's in the chaos of surprises and unlikely choices that we find what we were missing the most. Because in the end, it's not just the big moments that define who we are, but the courage to open our hearts when the unexpected comes knocking. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.